all of that, but thank you. We're really excited to be here, and it's really great to see everyone from different parts of the world. So thank you for having us, and thank you for this great opportunity. Dee, you want to say anything?
Yes, I'd just like to reiterate what Anju said. Thanks so much for having us. And it's really, really exciting to see people from the chat box is just blowing up from literally people from all over the world, from all different time zones. Thank you so much for joining us. And we can't wait to get started.
Yes, thank you. So we are going to talk about sparking the magic of creative writing in the primary and secondary classroom. It's something we're really both very passionate about, and Dee and I have collaborated many times on doing workshops and training sessions on this. So we're very excited to share some of our experience with you. Paul's already covered this, so we won't spend too much time on this. Just that, like he said, we really enjoy teaching creative writing, and it's our pet passion. Dee, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just want to say the reason that we love creative writing with the young learners is because they have the best imagination. And we all know that creative writing is about, an element of it is to have a problem and then how you basically solve the problem. And I am always in awe with how my kids in class solve problems, because they have such creative and innovative ideas. So it really, it's very inspiring to see them perform in class.
Thanks, Dee. Right. So to start off, we have a poll, right, Dee?
Yes. So this is this hopefully this poll will help us set the context of why we're all here today. So we just have a question for everyone, and the poll will appear for you, and you just have to let us know which of these choices is relevant to you. So as a teacher, as an educator, how long do you spend setting up creative writing tasks in your class? Do you spend 15 minutes or less, 30 minutes? Do you spend a whole lesson on it? Or do you set up the task over a few lessons? So everyone, please let us know what you prefer or what you practice in class. While we wait for everyone's answers, Anju, what about you? Which of these choices would you choose?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I'll have to go between C and D. If I had to choose, I'd choose D, because I like to spend a little bit more time on setting it up and drawing out their creative juices. What about you, Dee? How long do you spend setting up?
Same. I would say at least one lesson, because I mean, the same reason as you said, whether it's whether it's primary or secondary, I think they do need to spend a lot of time getting into the planning stages of it. And the results of the poll is in. We have 30% that have said that they spend 15 minutes setting up the task. 28% have said 30 minutes. 24% of our attendees spend one lesson on setting up a task, and 26% set up the task over a few lessons. And we also have a few messages here on the chat. They say it depends on how long on the class and the students. And some say during the whole academic year. Melinda, I think. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting. And I like the different answers we got, which brings us to our objectives for the session. So what we'd like to look at during this webinar is it doesn't matter how long we take to set up creative writing exercise, but you might have guessed by now, we a little longer, the better is what we feel. So we're going to look at the importance of setting the context, as well as helping learners understand the importance of key story elements, which are sometimes missed in all the writing chaos. We're going to look at some practical tools and techniques to teach creative writing, and very importantly, making it fun, making it engaging, and making it age appropriate for the primary and secondary classroom. Dee's got some fantastic examples from her own classes, which she'll share with you in a bit. And also the very important part of how can we differentiate, how can we support diverse needs of the whole class when teaching creative writing, because this is one of those areas where teachers sometimes find it challenging, and we've all been in there where, you know, not everyone can write to the same standard. So we'll look at some ideas that we've used and we found useful in our classes. So to start off, we have a question which you could answer using the Q&A function. Which of these activities have you used in class? Number 1, genre web. Number 2, graphic organizer. And number 3, story tower. We've given you some visual clues. Oh, we've got some Q&A. So yeah, these are some of the 3 activities we'll be talking to you about in a little bit. So you could click on the activities you've used in class.
Anju, I think that some of the images are blanked out. Yeah, I think just.
Is it okay now, or is it still blank?
Yeah.
Okay.
So on the screen, you can see something, 3 pictures. One of them is a genre web, one method of graphic organizer, and a story tower. So we'd love to hear what you have used in your classrooms. Oh, lovely. So we have 15% say that they have used genre webs. 47% have used graphic organizers. That's great. 31% have used story tower, which is awesome. And 27% have not used either of these, which is also great because there's a lot of information to share with all of you, and I'm sure we can learn a lot from each other as well.
Yes, absolutely. Like Dee said, so do feel free to share your ideas in the chat of your experience of using these activities. So it's great. We'll first look at genre web. So in genre web, I'll take you through an example lesson that I've used with my learners to talk them through genre. So obviously the first question would be, what's the meaning of genre? And elicit, and hopefully they'll come up with, sorting of books into categories, and very important, looking at style, content, and form. And then exploring the 2 main types of genre, fiction and non-fiction.
Anju, before you move on to the next slide, I just need to ask, is there a reason that you're using reading as an entryway to this activity or creative writing?
Yeah, that's a very good question, a very good point, Dee. So reading and writing are really connected when it comes to creative writing. And this is kind of a nice way to lead them, or an entryway into, sparking the magic, getting them really excited about reading and helping them experience, different styles, different content, different forms, and just, laying it out there and opening the door, as it were, and helping them walk into this, the magic reading. And I think it's really important to help them be passionate about reading, and that will lead them to be passionate about creative writing. So that's the whole thought process behind this kind of lesson or activity. And this is an activity you can do with your classes. There are 2 slides here. One, well, if you're online, you could do it like this as a PowerPoint activity, or you show it on the screen and ask learners to match it. You can either do it in open class where they shout out the answer. You could make them reflect on it on their own and then do a competition at the end where they have to type it in the chat. Of course, if it's face-to-face, there are lots of activities you can do, like a cut-up activity, a reading race. So there are lots of activities you could do with, where you get them to guess the genre. And then the important thing is to get them to really think about examples for each of this genre. And there is an activity which is called the genre web. And the idea is a spider's web. So each section is a genre. And I show them an example of what it could look like. They've got to pick 8 types of genre. And I give them some time to do this. It's usually over a week, sometimes even over 2 weeks. They've got to choose the genres. They've got to then write the title and the author of a book next to each one. They don't necessarily have to have read each book, but I'd encourage them to write down the title of a book that they'd like to read. What attracts you to this book, so that they have more to talk about when they do eventually talk about their genre web. And I'd like them to reflect on this, because this is, like I said, the entryway. It's what sparks the magic. So it's really important that they spend some time really exploring books. Very simple thing is they could go to the library and have a look around, because we just really want to open their minds to different types of books, not just, to that one thing that they like and they want to stick with. And there are some extension activities which can be done from the genre web. One is, students can talk to their partner about the genre web, talk about a book they read. Their partner can then present what they found out to the class. They could do a book review. They could write about their favorite character. So those are a few of the activities they can do after doing this genre web.
And Anju, what if you have students in your classroom where they find it difficult to figure out what the genre is, or they're not avid readers or something? How would you support or differentiate this in class?
Yes, exactly. That's again excellent. So one activity that I found that works well is to do something like a book cover quiz. It helps to kind of gray out the title of the book. So this is an example of an activity I did, where I took the cover, grayed out the title, and asked them to think, what do you think the title is? Looking at the pictures, what do you think the book's about? What do you think the genre is? What can you see on the cover? And then the question number 5 is more after they've looked at questions 1 to 4. Then you could put them into groups, get them to brainstorm a few words that they think are connected to the book. And this kind of activity, any kid can do of any level, because they just have to look at the pictures and guess, essentially. And it helps them engage with the book, gives them a real life skill of, picking out a book that you like. What do you look at? You look at the cover. So this is an activity that I would do to help those students. So this is it about genre web. We'll move on to number 2, which is graphic organizers, which I think a lot of you have experienced using, which is great. And Dee has extensive experience using these in her classes. So she'll talk us through some of the tips she has and show some amazing student work that has been produced as a result.
Thank you, Anju. So I'm really glad that most of you have actually worked with graphic organizers. Hopefully what we share today will be useful as well. For those of you who haven't used graphic organizers, you're probably wondering what they are. So graphic organizers are basically a tool that helps us to organize the information in a visual way. The reason I came across it was because I'm a very visual learner myself. So when I was studying, this really helped me. And I'm sure there are students in your classroom who would appreciate this as well. And so how do we use them? For creative writing, basically you can use graphic organizers across the board for any subject, and that's the best part about it. But we're going to talk about how you can use it for creative writing, and I've honed in on two ways that we can use it. One is that it can help us plan, and the other is that it can actually be the production task itself. So I've got examples to show you for both of these. So first we'll look at planning. A couple of tools that you can use when planning is you can use mind maps. You can also use Venn diagrams, which I don't know about you, but when I was in school, I only used it in math. So the fact that I can use it in my language class was amazing for me. And you can also help your students to plan out their writing by using storyboards. Yes. So now we're going to move on to how we could different types of mind maps, different types of planning. This is one way of jotting down your ideas. You give them everything on an overview. So you basically have your settings, your character, problem, solution. If you want to focus on a moral or a main message, this will give your students what they need to have everything at a glance. Another way of using mind maps is to use the, this is a very basic one. You can use it with different genres. This is less complicated. So if you want to use something at a very basic level, this could be another idea of putting your ideas down. And lastly, I think we have the very basic mind map, which I'm sure all of you have used, and we use this in our classrooms day in and day out. The important thing to remember is that you spend a lot of time on getting your students' ideas onto the board or the mind map. You generate all these ideas, but don't forget the second step, which is to show them how to organize those ideas according to the elements. As this example, it shows you whatever group them. So all of these ideas would be for your settings, and all of these ideas can go into your characters. These ideas are related to your problems and solutions. This is plot, any language specific things, specific aspects you want them to use. So it's very important that you do the second step of mind mapping also. The next way we can use graphic organizers is to explore characters. Personally, I feel like we don't spend enough time exploring characters, and I know Anju shares this sentiment with me. We can use Venn diagrams to compare and contrast your two different characters. If you want the antagonist and the protagonist, or the beginning and the end of your character, what they have in common. Another way that we can use graphic organizers to explore characters is to get them to create an overview of their character, like our next picture, where they create a superhero. And then they have all these different elements of the superhero, the alias, fun facts, the superpower, qualities you admire. So as you can see, it's more attractive than just writing things down. So that really gets the students involved. Another idea that you can use for character exploration is a basic overview like this, where you have their name, you have words to describe that character, and then you talk about, in very basic sense, what happens to the character, what you like about the character, dislike, and what does the character look like. So these are just a few ideas on how to explore the character, so that when your students start writing the story, they have a very good idea of who the character is and how they go through the story arc. And last but not least, another way that graphic organizers will help you plan your creative writing is using storyboards. Students, whether they're primaries or secondaries, they can use a little help putting the ideas in sequences. So these little storyboards can help them sort of break it down. And this is a very basic one. And this is another one where it gives you the overview of the story, so you can see how it progresses and how it comes to the climax, and then it works its way towards the ending. Yes, I can see a lot of people on the chat talking about Canva. Yes, these were made on Canva. It's an amazing tool. It's free to use, and I use it in class. I made these, I edited some of the graphic organizers I found and made it to what I wanted. But yes, that is where these were created. So that's about it on storyboards. These are all examples.
Sorry,
Yes.
could I ask a question? Which and it's beautiful, your storyboards. You've used Canva really well. Dee is a great advocate for Canva, by the way. Which age group would you use this kind of storyboard with versus the first one you showed us?
So the beauty of graphic organizers is that you can technically use this across the board. So for example, if you can use this with primaries or secondaries, but what would differ is the production. So the primaries, they can either draw a picture in each of these boxes, or they can just write a sentence or a phrase in each of these boxes, whereas the secondaries can obviously write something more complex. So they can write a paragraph in each box. Just to give you an example of how it can be used across both ages.
Thanks, Dee.
But yeah, thanks for that question. And yeah, so these are some of the examples of production tasks. So graphic organizers, it's not just for planning. You can also get your students to do their final production tasks using what I came across as 3D graphic organizers, because it really pops up. So the yellow poster, as you can see, is something that I did with my students for book day. We read an extract on from How to Train Your Dragon, and then each group created their own dragon. And those are little fact files that they pasted on the poster. And they used 3D graphic organizers to write all the information about their new type of dragon. And the white poster is a project that I did with my secondaries, which where they went on an expedition and they found a new species of animal, and they found a new bird called a flash bird. And they, in each of these boxes, they wrote and drew about how they found this animal, the journey, the animal's habitat, what they found out about the animals, eating habits, temperament, all those kind of things. So these are just a few examples of how you can use them as production tasks as well.
They're fabulous, Dee. They're brilliant, brilliant work.
Thank you. And so what the benefits of using graphic organizers I'm sure you all already know, most of you already know this, but what I really like about it is that it promotes critical thinking. And it also helps students to see the whole picture rather than isolated incidents. This is very important when it comes to creative writing, so that they don't just try to put a couple of sentences together. They need to have an idea of what they're doing and where they're going. And in the event that they're actually writing nonfiction, if they're writing something nonfiction, a documentary, fact files, it really helps the students to absorb the whole concept and ideas rather than memorizing facts and figures. And the best part about it is that it's completely learner-centered. The teacher just, I mean, as the teacher, you just introduce it, you set it up, and then hands off, because the students just get on with it and they can go on for hours with this. And it also taps into different talents of the students and encourages everyone to get more involved in if it's a group project. Talking about differentiation, how we can use this is that, so basically, especially in the ESL classroom, which where most of us are from, it really helps that the students can use text and symbols and pictures, especially if you have students in your classroom who are not very strong writers. And the other thing is that it works across all ages. With the smaller ones, with the younger students, you can get them to draw if they can't write. And with the older students, they can obviously go on to create a lot more complex graphic organizers. And I know we live in a bit of an uncertain time when we don't know if we're teaching face-to-face or online, but you can still use graphic organizers in an online classroom also, because I've done it, and it actually is a great collaborative online tool. I actually have some examples from the classroom. So this is actually a primary class. They created their own dinosaur, where you can see they have drawn a mind map and put all the details in place. And then they moved on to writing a paragraph and drawing the picture. Another thing that they did in class was, this was an example of a mind map where we talked about a pet, and then they threw all this vocabulary at the board, and then later on we organized it and wrote about an imaginary pet. And another example of how you can use this in the online classroom is where you give them this graphic organizer, you share it as your share screen, and then they annotate on it, and you can download it and save it. So it's an automatic way of taking down notes as well. I know this particular one is not about creative writing, but it's just an example. And then another way of storyboarding is this sequencing idea, where you just write sentences for what happens first, next, and then obviously the final writing task. So these are just some ideas to basically show you that it does work in your
these
class.
are amazing. I mean, fantastic student work.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we move on to our third activity, which is the story tower, we have another poll. Could you tell us what you think are the three most important components of creative writing?
Anju, I think it's what we need to sort of explain is that we understand that all of these things that we've put here are very important in creative writing. But maybe if you just think about what we've spoken about so far and think of in terms of creativity, what do you think is most important?
Exactly.
I see a lot of answers on the chat here itself, and they're all saying B. Oh, you can't say all three, that's cheating. Yeah, mostly I've got B's. There are a couple of A's. I can't wait to see
Nice.
the poll results.
I guess the
To see
key
what
word here is
actually happened.
creative writing.
Oh, okay. So we have 27% of the attendees who said A, 17% that said C, and a whopping 81% actually said B, which is development of characters, sequencing, and plot. There are no wrong answers, just to be clear.
Yeah. Yeah. We are, of course, because we kind of highlighted the fact of creative writing, D and I both lean towards B, because while everything is really important, what we kind of feel what we don't spend enough time on is developing characters, sequencing, and plot is what we try to emphasize and spend more time when we do creative writing in class. So let's move on to our final activity, Story Tower.
Yes, which some of you have actually done in class. So we're really excited to see what you think. This is the Story Tower that Anju and I put together. Those are the beautiful artistic skills of myself. So this is actually something that we came across, Anju, when we were trying to do a collaborative creative writing session online. Anju, would you like to give us a little introduction or backstory to how we came across this?
Yeah, we did a session on social media. Well, we had planned a session on social media, and then we thought, how can we engage participants more? So we decided to do a series of teaser videos, short teaser videos on the important elements of creative writing. So we did one on characters and one on setting, and we did another one on plot. But we'll show you in a little bit of those videos we did for characters and settings, and talk you through our experience of setting up that session.
Yes, so this was our final product. And what we really, really loved about it was that it was a completely hands-on activity to brainstorm and plan our creative writing. And we also thought that this was, it's something that the activity itself is where the students write or draw an event or idea on cards, and then they stack it up. So you can go as tall as you'd like or as tall as it would let you. So what we did was we set it up using the basic story elements that Anju mentioned, and we used it as a base, as the foundation, and then we built the story on top of it. And what we really, really liked about it was that it really forces the students to follow the story and build the story step by step, rather than jumping here and there and using using the elements. Yeah, so moving on, we're going to show you the video that we promised you. This one is on characters, and I'm just gonna tell you why characters are important.
Yes, so we'll show you the video, and I'll just stop it halfway through.
Hi! As promised, today we are going to look at characters. So Anju, can you tell us when you come up with characters, what's the most important thing?
Well, I think the most important thing is that you need to love your characters. And it's always good to have a little bit of good and a little bit of not so good in your characters to make them a little real.
So we're going to introduce some of our characters who will be going on a magical journey. So I'm going to start. This is Ollie the owl. Some of you might remember.
Okay, as tempting as it is, I'm going to stop at Ollie the owl. Ollie the owl was a star in our story. but I hope you get the drift. We wanted to just give them a little bit about characters, and then in the rest of the video, we had like 2 soft toys each, and we gave them personalities, and then we were going to give them more during our actual session. So the most important things we think are important when creating characters. The first thing is to believe in your character or love your character, and to actually think and feel like your character, you know, to think about, okay, you know, what would Ollie do? What would Ollie feel like if this happened to Ollie? Make your character real. So include some good and bad. Like Dee was showing us early in her Venn diagram, she's teaching us maths during ESL. Try and include, you know, good things and not so good things, so that your character's real, and people can relate to your character. And think about, what's your character's journey in the story? Do they find something out about themselves? Do they grow stronger emotionally, physically? Do they realize something about the world? So just encourage your students to really think about that. Like, you know, what about your story impacts your character? What changes them? And also add context. Talk about their family. What do they like? Do they have a social life? You know, what does Ollie like to do when he's so that's the kind of thing we try to do to encourage, you know, our students to really engage with their character, and, you know, so that whoever is reading their story will engage with their character too. Right, so that's about characters, and then we'll move on to settings, and I'll just play the video, right, Dee, before Dee talks us through settings. So again, I'll show you the first part, and pause it.
It's us again. And today we are going to explore settings. Anju, can you tell us what exactly is a setting?
Well, I guess very simply, a setting is the place or places where your story happens, or the key events in your story happen. So it's really important that your setting is, you decide where your setting is, what period of time, what things are included, is it a real place or an imaginary place, and things like that.
And can you have, I mean, do you have only one setting in a story, or can you have more than one?
Oh, I think that's the beauty of creative writing. You can have as many settings as you like.
So as you saw, we spoke about what exactly setting is, and are you limited to one or two? So basically, to put in a nutshell, setting, it can be a time period. So this is something that is important to think about when you are creating your setting. When does the story take place? Does it take place in the past, the present, the future? Sorry.
Yeah, and also
Yeah,
I'll let Dee catch her breath a bit. And also, like, how the setting impacts the characters and the details of the story, the environment, especially, you know, is it a forest? Is it a village? Is it a spaceship? Is it a magical Candyland?
Yeah, and the beauty of it is actually that when you speak of the environment, it can even cross from one environment to another. It can go from a forest to a spaceship. The world is your oyster. And the most important thing to think about is how does this place and time add value to your story? This is something that the students really need to be reminded of, because they tend to go overboard with all the different things that they can do. And that's something important that they need to be reminded. And also, what are the challenges because of the settings? So how are the characters challenged? How is the story challenged? The problem that comes up because of the setting? And also don't forget to encourage them to explore the possibility of multiple settings, because it's very exciting.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so that brings us to the last part. What are the benefits of using Story Tower? So we really think it supports differentiation and diverse needs because it's very step by step. And like Dee said, you can use pictures, you can just use words, and it's also like just kinesthetic, so it's fun, and you can do it as a group. Like when Dee and I did it, we did it online. Like I was in a different location, she was in a different location. We thought it wasn't possible, but we did it, we had fun. The participants really enjoyed it, so it's all doable in whatever teaching context you're in. Which also really encourages ideas from students. And if they're better at drawing, they can draw. If they're better at speaking or writing their ideas, they can do that. You can have a presenter, you can have a writer, you can have an illustrator. It's all in one, and it's a beautiful thing for them to present, and they're really proud of what they've created. So they can create the Story Tower as a group, but then they can write it individually. So it allows you to assess, but it also helps those learners who need a little bit more get that from the Story Tower activity. And then you also can challenge your stronger students to kind of, make their own story, oh, okay, that's one setting. Come on, now let's think of some others. You can also push and nudge your learners based on, where they're at. So it also helps you, navigate their individual work. And there is an extension activity, which I think Dee came up with this, where you can write on one side and draw on the other. So you can sides and have students tell the stories by either explaining the pictures or using only the keywords. So there are a lot of activities you can do with the Story Tower. When you get our presentation, you'll also have a list of a whole heap of reading and writing extension activities that Dee and I put together when we actually created this session to be used with our a group of our students. So there's a lot of activities, like you make your own test, questions, second chance, daily edition, author interview, which we were inspired by, writing a journal, a dramatic dialogue, write a one-page pitch to a producer, write to a friend, the author, or to a character about the book, diary entry, a movie preview, host a talk show, so or draw a map of the books, which actually it's very interesting when you have these children's books and you have different settings. So it's quite an exciting thing to do. So I think that's more or less it from Dee and I, unless Dee, you would like to.
Anju, we have some very positive notes of appreciation, and a lot of those who are attending are actually saying that they're going to be trying out some of these activities in their classroom with their students today.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you.
Great. Yes, lots of comments I've been reading. Lots of people getting very excited about about all of it. Particularly, I've noticed with the story tree, which I also love, and I actually want to try it. Yeah, fantastic. Lots and lots of brilliant ideas. So thank you ever so much, both of you, for that. And I think from the comments, as you said, lots and lots of interesting ideas and lots of things that people want to try out. Questions, if you have any questions for Anju or for Dee, please do put those into the chat. I can see there are 2 or 3, but if you've got any more, then do put those into the chat and we can try and answer. There's most people sort of saying thank you. I'm just going to put some information in the chat there as well. I've just put in where the recording will be available and where you can get certificates and things like that. Okay, let's have a look. It's a question from Beatrix Ivanov. Any suggestions or tips for teaching creative writing to students with limited lexical resources or grammatical control? I mean, I guess this sort of comes back to the poll question that you put up around what's important. I mean, I know people, all of those things are important, but I noticed a comment from someone saying about creativity and encouraging creativity. If you're focusing on accuracy and grammar and so on, then it can affect that creativity. Do you agree with that? Do you think that it's an important thing, or how important is grammar, or where does the grammar kind of come in the process?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. I think it's that importance of balancing grammatical accuracy and not stifling creativity. And I think if you have a group of students who are, you know that they have limited lexical resource and they're struggling, I just first go with encouraging creativity. And if that's just them drawing something, that's totally fine. Because, what they produce and what's going on here are completely separate things. It's really important that they've come to a place in their heads where they're ready to produce, and every kid has a different place where they're going to be able to produce certain things. And it's really important for us as teachers to nudge them, but also not give them a challenge that they can't achieve yet. So striking that balance, I think, is really important.
Okay. Online tools to help with front-end brainstorming from Jennifer Fieldhouse. Any suggestions for online tools to help with front-end brainstorming? I'm trying to kind of understand the definition of front-end brainstorming as opposed to other types of brainstorming. I don't know, Jennifer, if you want to kind of clarify that in the chat, unless Anju and Dee, you understand that completely, and I'm just ignorant.
I'm looking at Dee because she's a mind map expert. But I think a lot of the things you showed, like the mind map, can be used online as well.
So there are some, unfortunately, most of the online sites that I've come across, we need to be careful with, in our context, with our classrooms, we have restrictions on what we cannot use. So we have to keep the students' online safety as a priority at all times. I would say use the online, the share screen function as much as possible, and get them to collaborate on the screen as much as possible so that you can save it, because sometimes the online sites, they don't really allow you to save. You have to keep going back to that site to add. And children will lose the link. They'll delete stuff, they're always gonna lose the homework. There are a couple, if you search online, I'm sure you'll be able to find a lot. But what I've done personally is I've tried to keep it as safe as possible and done the brainstorming in the classroom on the Zoom share screen app as much as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Angie, for that. Let me have a look. What else is there? I don't know if you can see the questions. There are some comments rather than questions, but people asking where they can go to for extra information. So books that you might suggest, or resources or websites perhaps that you might suggest where people can go and read more information about the tools and techniques. Have you written a book yet, you two, on this?
We wish. So in our presentation, we have
That's Anju
fiction. I write fiction. We've given some links to where we've got a few of our resources from, and a lot of the extension activities as well have some have some great ideas. So we'll share that with you in the.
Okay.
Yeah. So regarding the graphic organizers, I did a research based on it, which is why I have all this information. So I had to dig really deep. But there's a lot of information out there. If you search online, if you search on Pinterest, if you search on Scholastic or whatever it is, there are lots of free resources out there. And also, like I said, Canva will help you. So these are just some of the tools that I use. And also, whenever possible, when you have a good idea or something great that works in class, make a note of it, because you think you're going to remember it next time, but you're not. So when something works really well in your class, just make a note of it so that you can go back to it and make it better and improve it as you go along.
Mhm. Okay.
Yes, and I think Dee is being a little modest. She did write a Medium article about her experience, so you can check it out on Medium as well.
Okay. Interesting one about evaluating and kind of assessment and evaluation. Is that, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, sorry. I actually wanted to ask you if I could answer that. There was a question on how you evaluate the creative writing. I'm not sure if any of you have heard or done this in class, but something called marking ladders that you can just search and read up a little bit about it. That's something that I use with my students, and it has worked every single time. It basically gives the students an overview of what you expect from them and how you be marking them for it. And so it's kind of so you would say spelling errors, or have you answered the basic questions of who, what, where, do your characters have qualities, do you have a setting, all the things that we spoke about. You kind of give it to them in a checklist, and then they know how they're going to be great, that this is something that they will be evaluated and assessed on, and you use it to give them comments on, like, okay, setting, this is what I think about your setting. It doesn't have to be a really long one. You can, I mean, if you Google marking ladders right now, grading ladders, I'm sure you can find something that you can tweak for your classroom, but that's something worth looking at.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dee, for that. Sort of run out of time. We've got time for one more question. I don't know if either of you have spotted a question that you'd like to answer. We've maybe got time for one more. Correlation and one-to-one. We do story towers with one-to-one students. So
Yes, I mean, absolutely, because you'd be your student's partner. So absolutely, you can. Of course, the lucky one-to-one student, because they'll get some fantastic personal attention with that one.
True.
Yeah,
Okay.
and just keep guiding them with your questions. So you can actually get them to give you all to sort of exploit and guide them with the questions that you ask. So that's actually great in so many ways.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. Again, Dee and Anju, that's really good. That was great, and lots of fantastic ideas. I'm pretty sure. I think I said to you when we were doing the practice that if I wish I was seeing you kind of go through the slides. I wish I was actually still teaching teens and primary, so I could actually use some of these. So yeah, really enjoyable. Thank you, and lots of great comments. So thank you everyone for attending. I'm just going to share my screen quickly because this isn't the only webinar we have